Get started here. So ladies and gentlemen, thank you for coming out tonight. Again, great to see a full house. Looks like we might have to open a door when the event on that side is done, but great to see everybody out and being engaged in our community. So thank you for being here. Thank you. I've been asked quite a bit in the last week, what are you presenting? And quite frankly, we'll do a quick update on a few things, but we're really not here to present anything. These open forums that we decided to do is just an opportunity for residents of our community to come to the mic, ask any question about any topic you like, and we're going to answer the question for you. Now, I'll caution that by, you won't always like the answer you hear, but that's just life. But it's going to be the truth. We're an open book. It's about being open, transparent, and giving you this opportunity. So don't hesitate to come up. What we do is, we'll go through. Our clerk will go through the rules here shortly. All we ask is that you be respectful, and people in the audience also be respectful of the person asking the question, whether you like the question they're asking or not. Just be respectful. We're not here to stir up a beehive. We're simply here to answer questions. So everybody please be respectful of each other, and I think we'll get through the next 2 hours. I think you'll leave a little more informed. Some of you may be happy, some of you may not, but the whole purpose is to do this. And we'll do this twice a year from now until the end of this term of council. So without further ado, I'll turn it over to our lovely clerk, Nicole, and Nicole, you can take it from here.
Thanks, everyone, and welcome to the Town of Wasaga's second Town Hall meeting, which is an open mic format that allows members of the public to ask questions of Mayor and staff. My name is Nicole Rubley. I'm your town clerk and moderator for the evening. I'd like to start with the land acknowledgement. The Town of Wasaga Beach acknowledges it is located upon the traditional territory of the Anishinaabe people of the Three Fires Confederacy and the Wyandot Nation. We respect the spiritual interconnection among these nations to the land and to the water, and acknowledge that waterways were the lifeblood of the indigenous people by trade and hunting routes. We are dedicated to inclusivity of First Nations, Inuit, and Métis people in our future stewardship of the land and the longest freshwater beach in the world. In spirit of reconciliation, we welcome the opportunity of learning to be sustainable caretakers of the land and waterways for all future generations. So, before I turn it over to our Chief Administrative Officer, Andrew McNeil, for a brief presentation, I just want to go over a few housekeeping matters. So we ask that you attend one of the microphones located up front here to my left and right. We ask that you allow everyone an opportunity to address the panel prior to returning to the microphone. We do only have a couple hours. We ask that everyone be respectful when addressing the panel and with one another. Town staff and council value and respect your opinions of all our residents, and we want to ensure proper decorum is maintained to allow for meaningful and respectful dialogue. We will take questions until 9 p.m. this evening, and any questions regarding identifiable individuals will not be permitted this evening. I also wanted to provide some key dates that are coming up in October because I have everybody here. So October 10th, there'll be the regular council meeting at 10 a.m., followed by the official plan open house at the Wasaga Stars Arena and Library at 7 p.m. October 17th at 10 a.m., the 2025 draft budget will be tabled with council and available to the public. On October 23rd, the town will hold the official plan meeting in accordance with the Planning Act in council chambers at 7 p.m. October 24th, there'll be the regular council meeting at 10 a.m. at Town Hall, followed by a public meeting for the 2025 draft budget held at the Wasaga Beach Arena and Library. All this information will be available on the town's website. So without further ado, I will now pass the mic to our Chief Administrative Officer, Andrew McNeil.
Okay, thank you, Nicole. And Chris, you're going to put the presentation up for me? Good. Pleasure to be back in front of you this evening. Last time I was in this room, I was beginning to struggle with some vocal cord issues. I am about 90% recovered, but I still don't have my voice back yet. So, not me. Okay. That was not me, that was the mic. So I'm going to do just a quick update on a few key initiatives that we're working on, we've been working hard on, before we open it up to questions. So you may have heard about our recent trip to Ottawa. We've been working hard for the residents of Wasaga Beach to advance a number of initiatives. We had some great opportunity to meet with the Premier and our MPP, Brian Saunderson, and that's something that you don't get a lot of opportunity to do. So we were given 10 minutes, but I think he spent about 45 with us. So he was very intrigued by what we were talking about, very interested in helping us to move Wasaga Beach forward. I'm sure a lot of you know the history here, but we do have some newcomers to town. So I thought I'd just give a 20-second history lesson. So back in the late 60s, early 70s, the province engaged in a very aggressive expropriation campaign in our community. The province assembled 25% of the geographic land area of Wasaga Beach, and they still hold that to this day. The intent back then was to assemble land and create park areas for residents of Toronto to come up and enjoy our beach, essentially catering to day trippers from the city of Toronto. For those that knew Wasaga pre-expropriation, I would argue we still haven't recovered from the damage that approach inflicted on our community. Businesses, restaurants, hotels, homes were demolished and replaced with parking lots. So in the early 70s, the province, they spent a lot of money up here creating those parking lots, but they really undermined the whole economy of this town. And I would argue it's never recovered. So we're trying to get the province engaged in helping us to address some of the lingering issues that have been for over 50 years. One of the key areas we want to work with the province on is around the main beachfront. I'm sure you're all aware that, one of the areas we're looking at is the area in yellow, which is predominantly town-owned. About 70% is town-owned. We're going to be moving forward with redevelopment. But the province owns lands immediately adjacent on both the north and south side of the town's properties. So it's very important that they come to the table and work with us. If you've been to the Point, and if you've been to the Provincial Park Beach Area too, it doesn't take long to realize there hasn't been a lot of investment in those areas. There's broken down picnic tables. A lot of the shade structures that were built in the early 70s, there's been so much sand that has washed up around these that instead of actually fixing the shade structures, they've put rubber around the bottom so that if you hit your head, you won't knock yourself out. A lot of the parking lots are covered in sand. There's actually an interesting, I think it's a public art display of septic tank covers right at the northern point of Beach Area 1. The point is, it's time for some reinvestment. The province is spending $50 to $60 million to create a new urban park in Uxbridge. They haven't invested and maintained the first urban park that they created here back in the 70s. So it's due, we're due for a bit of reinvestment, and we're not talking about turning the world upside down. So for example, just by show of hands, how many of you know that there's a provincially owned amphitheater in Beach Area 2? I'd say about under 10 hands. How many in this room have actually been to a concert or a performance at that provincially owned amphitheater? I see one hand. So, okay, a couple, fantastic. I've been here 53 years. I've never seen anything happen there. I know I was talking to a resident not long ago who actually approached the province and said, if I was to organize some community groups and get some sponsors, could we actually use that amphitheater and put on some shows? And the province said no. So they've built these assets that aren't being used. So perhaps we can work with them instead of, and next time you're in there, take a look. It took me a while to actually find it. I didn't know where it was, but I went looking a few weeks ago. Perhaps we could work with the province and build a really cool amphitheater right on the beach that we could put on performances for all of our community and that could become a real asset for town. There will always be a need for parking down there. Maybe it doesn't have to be a winding driveway. Maybe they could consolidate it all and not use up so much land for parking. Maybe they could build a parking structure on provincial lands. So I think after 50 years, it's time to reinvent some of these lands is the bottom line. Nancy Island is another topic of discussion that we had with the Premier. I remember going to Nancy Island when I was a kid. I have photos of me as a 12-year-old standing on that lighthouse. I thought it would be cool to take my kids to get the same photo. You know, people do the same photo with their kids. Couldn't do it because the bridge to the lighthouse has been condemned for 3 years. So you physically can't get there. The lighthouse itself is infested with termites and it's actually crumbling. The main bridge over to the island is actually falling down. And the building itself, you can see on the right, is in desperate need of paint. For most of my life, every time I crossed that Main Street Bridge, I was really proud to look at that Nancy Island. It's an icon in our town. Today, it's kind of embarrassing. And if you notice lately, the lights aren't even on at night anymore. So it's time to fix Nancy Island. That's an important part of our history. It's an important part of our country's history. So we've asked the province to please step up and do something about this. Part of the issue, we think some of these assets are in the wrong ministry. Ontario Parks, I've no disrespect towards Ontario Parks. They're doing the best they can with very limited resources. But ministries like the Ministry of Tourism know how to do this stuff well. They took over assets in other neighboring communities in Penetang and have really turned those into amazing tourist destinations. So we've made the request to transfer these assets into the Ministry of Tourism because we think they'll be a little more in sync with where we're trying to go as a community. Vacant land holdings. I mentioned earlier that a lot of land was assembled back about 50 years ago. Many of you know my family's been here for over 100 years. Those images on the top right are my family's. My grandfather was Graham Christie, and he ran Christie's Cottages from 1921 to 1971. You'll notice the approved by CAA. We were one of only a handful of AAA rated accommodations in this community. We were expropriated and torn down. The lands that sat on have been sitting vacant for 50 years. So it's kind of a shame that we used to attract tourists from New York, Pennsylvania, Europe. A lot of English tourists would come and stay for the summer. All that stopped back in the early 70s. So the longer stay tourists that really spent a lot of money, built amazing memories in our town, overnight were lost. So it's not just those lands, but scattered throughout town and a lot of lands along Shore Lane. We calculated there's about 84 single-family lots. They're just sitting there for the last 50 years. A basic vacant lot on Shore Lane on Georgian Bay is probably $1 to $2 million. Just do the simple math there. The province is sitting on hundreds of millions of dollars of real estate, and we're not talking about touching the park areas. Leave those alone, perhaps reinvent them, update them, but land that's not being used, that's just sitting there, that's costing all of us money because those lands are not contributing to our tax base. So a quarter of our tax base was removed in the 70s. That impacts all of your wallets. So we'd like to get the province to think about potentially reinventing some of these lands, better using their land holdings, contributing to our economy, and ultimately helping all of us keep all of our tax increases low. Beachfront relevant redevelopment. Many of you were here a few weeks ago, back in June, when we presented essentially the master plan for moving forward. If you weren't here, this is a basic plan. In the central area around Playland parking lot, we're looking to move forward with a hotel. It's going to be a high-quality hotel on par with the Westin that you see over at the Village of Blue. So that's a big deal for Wasaga Beach. We're also excited that we're going to try and advance that as part of the first phase of redevelopment. That is almost unheard of. Hoteliers do not like to take risk. They like to move into areas that are already vibrant, up and running. So the company behind this, Sunray Group, is really extending a welcoming hand to Wasaga Beach and working with us to help bring this to light sooner rather than later. The sketches that some of you may have seen, that was a very quick concept, very confident that we'll work with the community to make sure that the architecture of the hotel is in keeping with the kind of theme that we'd like to see down on the beachfront. And then between first and third, we're looking at mixed-use development. Yes, there will be residential down on the beachfront. That's very important that we see some residential, because in order for those shops and restaurants to be viable, you need people there year-round. So we're looking forward at getting that moving quickly. The first moves that we're going to be making pertain to Beach Drive. So many of you may have heard that we have issued letters to all of the current town-owned tenants that are down on the beachfront. They're going to be there till Thanksgiving, and then we've asked them to take any possessions that they would like out of the buildings, and we are going to have to start demolition. It's going to be sad to see some of these buildings go, maybe not sad for all of them, but so that's going to start late fall through the winter. We anticipate that town-owned buildings will be demolished by the end of March, and then around April 1st, we will look to start construction on Beach Drive, Spruce Street, 3rd Street. It will include a couple new roundabouts, one roundabout right at Main Street as you come over the bridge. It's very important to get that work started because, as you know, for those of you who remember a couple years ago when the water was really high, we have a flooding issue down at the beachfront. In order to redevelop, we need to raise the grade on that Beach Drive. It's going to come up about 5 feet. I'm 6'2", so it's about up to here. We're raising that road. There's a shore wall that will go in front that will protect from future flooding, future waves, etc. And that will allow us to reinvent the beachfront with new, modern buildings, still keeping the historic charm, but we need to do that in order to move forward because a lot of the buildings are currently in the floodplain. So exciting things going to happen on the beachfront. Images of Beach Drive, if you haven't seen these already. It will be designed as a flush street, meaning no curbs. So for accessibility issues, if we close the street for a concert or a special event, curbs, it'll all be flush. You can see the stairs and the ramps down to the beachfront as well. So that is coming along quite nicely. Again, conceptual image as well. Community Hub, you've probably all heard the wonderful news that we're getting our first high school in our community. Almost a $60 million investment by the province. This is the largest investment that the province made this go-around. We're incredibly excited about this. It's not just a school. There's also going to be a theater in this building. We're looking at building a state-of-the-art, approximately 300-seat community theater that you will all enjoy, be able to go to concerts, plays, etc., in a proper theater, proper sound system, proper lighting, etc. So wonderful things. Post-secondary training, development, partnerships with post-secondary institutions as well. Now, a lot of debate about why Catholic, why not public. I think you've all heard we're now number 2 on the public systems list as well. This is phenomenal for our community. No high schools a few years back to now have one that's going to be under construction shortly, doors open 2027, and the potential to get another public school within a few years as well. Our kids are the winners here, and this has been a real gap in becoming a complete different. I don't know why these mics keep drifting in and out. So I've heard a lot of comments I haven't seen anything under construction. What's going on with the school? So there will be an application for tree cutting shortly. I know nobody likes to cut down trees, but in order to build the school, we actually have to clear the site. The school board will require a flat cleared site by next summer. So you're going to see tree cutting start in the fall, winter, and then earthworks early in the spring, with the school board likely starting construction early summer next year. That'll give them plenty of time. It's a 2-year build, which will get us to a point where doors open 2027. So exciting, fantastic. I think we're all looking forward to that. And for those of you who attended Burton Cummings Blue Rodeo back this past winter, fantastic events for our community. And it's not just about the performances, it's all the spin-offs that come with that. We heard stories from a lot of the restaurants in town. The night of those 2 concerts, every restaurant was full. So in the off season, that's really important to our local businesses to help them survive. So our first official event of the Wasaga Beach Sports and Entertainment Group is going to be on September 27th, 28th. We've got headlined by David Wilcox, Ashley McIsaac, which we're all looking forward to. And the other thing I would say, we were hopeful that we would be able to announce the 2025 lineup tonight. We can't do it just yet, just because we got a few contracts we need to finalize signatures on, but we're very close. I think you'll hear very shortly. We're going to announce the entire 25 lineup. I will give you a bit of a teaser and say we're looking at our roots, and we've taken a look at the Dardanella. And for many of you, I know I've spent many, many nights at the Dardanella attending concerts. We're looking at those great acts that attended the Dard, and we're going to be picking a bunch of those. All names that you will all know. Probably many of you went and saw at the Dard, and you'll be able to come out and see. So it's going to be an exciting lineup, and you'll be hearing shortly from us about all of that. So please, if you haven't got a ticket for Rocktoberfest, come on out and join us. I'll stop there, and we can open the floor up for questions.
There we go. Okay, before we take our first question, we'll just quickly go down the line here and introduce everybody, and we'll start at the far end with our CFO. Just go ahead and introduce yourselves. Now tomorrow they'll be saying the mayor doesn't know who the staff are. There we go, you're good.
Hi, everyone. My name's Jocelyn Lee, and I'm the Chief Financial Officer and Treasurer for the town.
Good evening, everyone. Kevin Lalone, Director of Public Works and General Manager, Infrastructure Services.
Good evening. That's on. My name's Craig Williams. I'm the Fire Chief as well as the General Manager of Community Services.
Hi, everyone. I'm Jerry Marshall. I'm the Deputy CEO and Director of Special Projects.
And we've all met Nicole, and we all know who Andrew is. So without further ado, we'll go to our first microphone, and that'll be over here on my left.
Hello, my name's Frank, and I have 2 things I'd like to mention. First of all, not as important as the second, where can I bring my trailer to pick up some of that firewood? I'm just...
Firewood?
Well, you're going to clear for the school, right?
Okay, right.
So, we all like firewood at Wasaga, right? Okay, seriously.
We'll start a list.
No, seriously, the only reason I'm standing here is because I want to remind people that there's a Legion in town, and we're looking for people to join. And I want to thank the town for agreeing with us on giving us a lease and a place to do what we want to do. And yeah, it's not perfect. We're waiting to see if we end up on the bus route. That's the worst thing I'm going to say right now. Thank you.
Thank you, Frank. Branch number 645. It's just absolutely amazing that Wasaga Beach now has a Legion once again, and we'll be hosting our Remembrance Day ceremonies on Remembrance Day moving forward with our local Legion looking after that for us. So thank you to the Legion, thank you to any veterans that are here tonight, and for the ones that aren't, thank you. Good evening, Giorgio.
Mr. Mayor, it's Giorgio Mamalidi. Thank you so much. Just in terms of procedure, do you want us to give opinions on what we just heard or just ask questions?
So tonight is a question and answer period, but if you want to give an opinion, that's okay.
All right. I totally disagree with residential on the beachfront. I think it's going to be detrimental to our identity as Wasaga Beachers, and I think that it's going to be a big mistake for tourism and a big mistake for the taxpayer. I think the costs of this thing are going to be exorbitant, and it's going to cost us, those of us that own homes and are paying property taxes, a lot of money. So I totally disagree with what you're doing. You know that anyway. We've talked about it. I'm not going to go at length with that. But I do have a couple of questions, and I know they're not going to be popular, but I really do care about your answer, if that's okay.
Absolutely.
It has been difficult for people. Seniors, people have been striving to keep their homes, trying to make ends meet. It's been hard the last few, not just in Wasaga Beach, everywhere. The economy's at an all-time low, as we know. And recently I learned that the council gave itself a raise. Many of the councillors that sit on council are training. It's their first term of office. I just want the first question to be, I've only got two questions, okay? The first question is going to be why? Why can you justify it for me, please? How do you justify, given what's going on with the economy and people and struggling, raises right away to councillors that have never sat in a chair before in our training?
Was there a second question?
Yeah. Did you want to answer that?
Give me both, sure.
All right, the second question relates to what I think is a problem. I see it as a problem, and maybe you can tell me different. So we in the beachfront have given the property rights to someone, some companies, more than one, I think. And you, Mr. Mayor, and one of the other councillors that I know attended an Italy trip with the person that got. No, I'm going to ask the question because I really do care about it, and I care about the answer. Okay, the Italy trip was a trip that you, not sitting as the mayor, but you knew the proponent very well because you chose him the last time you were in office. You and one, maybe two of the councillors went on a trip with the successful proponent and visited his villa. I even bought the package, but I never went, right? I wasn't a sitting politician anyway. But at the end of the day, you went, and so did a couple other councillors. How do you justify giving the proponent the rights to build on Beach 1 after such a trip? And are you prepared to move a motion at council that brings it all out in the open with respect to an audit, not just of yourselves, but an audit of the proponent's books as well, so that we know that the beachfront is being built out by somebody who might be sincere and wants to be a true partner? A lot of us have questions about what happened on that trip, and it's very, very difficult for us to understand that after you came back from that trip and you became the mayor of this town again, the proponent that you introduced the first time all of a sudden gets the bid.
Okay, so I'm going to answer the second question first because I really think that's the most important question, quite frankly. First of all, I was the mayor at the time when I purchased the tickets. The tickets were donated by the Fram Building Group to a fundraiser that was held at Marlwood Golf Course to raise funds for the library. And I purchased those tickets through a bidding process. It was an open auction, and I purchased those tickets. And again, I'm not sure, I don't remember the exact number, but it was in that $5,000 plus range. What I can tell you is I did that to support the library. It had nothing to do as to who donated them, where I was going, or any other thing. I can tell you that myself and my wife often purchase these types of tickets, and we purchase them at fundraisers. We purchased several tickets at hospice, for example, to go away. We just came back from Africa, blessed to have been able to go, and that was a ticket that we purchased at the hospice gala. We purchased another ticket to go to Italy next year with our family at the hospice gala. So when these come up and I'm at an event, I often like to support it, and those are the items that I like to buy. I can tell you that if anyone was to go online to a travel agent and purchase a trip like we did to Italy, you would pay half or less than I paid in that bidding process. I can tell you that it was so popular that I believe it was asked of the Fram Building Group if they would donate more of these because more people wanted to buy to raise more money, and I believe they did, and several more people. I think about 20 people, give or take one or two, were on that trip. I want to be clear that this was not Frank Giannoni's personal villa. It was a hotel that his family owns and runs in Italy. So that's how those tickets were purchased. That's how they were paid. It was all in the open. No one hid anything. I would do it again today, quite frankly, and if I was supporting a worthy cause. And I believe that everyone else who bought those tickets, whether they be other members of council or members of the public, did so in good faith. I can tell you, while on that trip, no business was discussed in any way, shape, or form. And other than the 3 members of council, if it was 3, there were 17, 18 other witnesses there that could, I'm sure, attest to that. So, you say that many people want the answer to this. That's the answer. That answer I have given before. That answer I gave out during my campaign because the question was brought up, and there's nothing to hide. And as I said, if it's supporting a good cause, like our library or any other cause in this municipality, or any other charity that's running that type of event and has a trip that's available that I will say my wife is interested in because I don't get a lot of choice, I will purchase those. Did it once and I will do it again. So what I can also tell you is that those tickets that were purchased at that price were simply purchased for staying there, for the room. It didn't include any meals. Maybe it included 1 meal and 2 breakfasts or something, but it didn't include meals. Those were all above and beyond. It didn't include any sightseeing or any tours. They were above and beyond. Mr. Frank Giannone did come and join us for a few days of that trip, and he did take everybody who wanted to attend out and show them around that area of Italy, which was wonderful. Airfare was not included either. So it was a very costly trip, but a very worthy cause. So I hope that answers your question, and be more than happy to show the exact amount that I paid, and I'd be happy to show my visa receipts to anybody who wants to see them as to how much it cost me to stay there to eat. Don't jab at me because I'm a fat kid, but how much it cost to stay there and eat and to attend other functions while I was there.
So
To-
part of my question was, are you prepared to allow an audit through a motion in council? Just to,
No, I'll answer.
You're not.
I'll answer. Sorry, ladies and gentlemen, as I said at the beginning, whether we like the questions or we don't, no matter who it is, please be respectful. I see no reason to do that. It's not something that I would support. I can tell you that when I was mayor from 14 to 18, we went through a very open and transparent process. in the RFP process. In this term of council, we went through a very open and transparent RFP process. Fram Building Group, the Fram Sloker Group, their books were all audited in the past. We know that they're a solid company. I'm very comfortable with the decision that council has made, and I am not prepared to put that motion forward. If someone else is, so be it, but it won't be me. Now, to the first part of your question, you know, the way it normally works in municipalities is that the last year of the term of council, you normally have a process completed where comparables are done. And these comparables and this process is done with a complete independent company of the town. It's a company that does this process for many other municipalities within the province and across the country. So it is independent. And it's that council, that sitting council in the last year normally has this process completed and then sets the rates for the next council. And that's a fair process because you don't know if you're going to be on the next council or who is going to be on the next council. The reason this was done in this term of council is because the last council didn't do that. The last council went through a process to raise their income by, I believe, about 50% because the province took away, sorry, maybe it was 33%, because the province took away a rule in place for many years that 1/3 of politicians' salaries was tax-free. So they gave themselves a raise to make up for that difference. What they didn't do was look at what it should be for the next council. So when this council came into play, we needed to do that. We reached out, not us council, staff, HR reached out, and I'll let staff speak to this in a minute so there's a fulsome answer. Had this process done, and I'll let staff explain where we ended up and why we're there. But before I do that, I want to say that the total increase to this council through that process, although councillors received 20% roughly, the total increase for everyone on council is less than 0.1% of the total budget. Now, I'm not making light of that because I fully understand the trials and tribulations that people are facing today. But although 20% sounds like a huge number, it really isn't. And when you look at where we were on the comparable chart, we settled at the 50th percentile, so in the middle. That's where this was recommended that council be. I will tell you this, that this council will have to, in our final year, look to a process like this again in order to make sure that the next council comes in and that council should do the same. That's how it works everywhere across the province almost. You've been on councils, I think you probably recognize that. However, Toronto a little different, big money, different story here. What I'll end with before I turn this over to staff is this. I'm not speaking for other members of council, but I can tell you I'm very happy and proud of the council I have. And each and every member of this council works hard. I can tell you I do between 55 and 65 hours weekly. And I'm not complaining. I knew what I was getting into when I signed up for this job. I couldn't be more proud and more privileged to be here and do this job. But I will tell you, every member of this council puts in a lot of hours. They work hard. I believe we're doing great things to move this community forward, and I will not apologize for being paid a somewhat fair wage for the work we do. And I'll turn it over now to our CFO to speak to this a little.
Thank you.
Well, I want to make sure, folks, that there's a fulsome answer to Mr. Mamalides' question, so we're just going to take a few more minutes and complete this one. Actually, sorry, no, Giorgio, we're not going to debate with members of the audience, but I would say this, you could have come to council, asked for a chance to speak at council to this, so it's not the only chance you get.
So thank you. So yes, this process, as described, is normally done every few years, and it does include staff compensation review as well as the council remuneration review. And it had not been done previously. We were quite a few years behind. It was done recently, and the consultant did use the relative comparators that were other municipalities that were similar in size to our municipality in both financial and population. And they did review and find that we were considerably below where we should be. And when you're below, you have to take a larger percentage increase in order to bring yourself in line with where you should be. So this was quite reasonable based on the analysis that was completed, and it was a minor relative amount in terms of actual dollars required to just put these remunerations in their proper place. So thank you.
I will just end with, that still puts us in the center. We are not at the top, we're not at the bottom, we're in the middle, and that's a fair place to be. Thank you very much, Giorgio. We're going to go on to the next.
Bit of information, Mr. Mayor.
No, we're going to.
Sorry, we're
going to
moving
move
on. We're moving
Just
on.
some information.
I'll tell you what you can do. You can sit down for a while. If there's no one else comes up with a question, you're welcome to come back.
Yeah.
Right? Good evening, sir. We got a tech coming down there.
Maybe just pop over to this mic.
Hello? Yes, my name is Sterling Fisher. I just moved here and I came to Wasaga Beach for the beach.
I'm just going to ask you to move a little closer to the mic, sorry.
Yes, my name is Sterling Fisher, and I just basically moved here for the beach that I like. I like the setup there. I bought a house in Allendale for my weekend cottage type of thing there. I work really hard during the week, and I come on the weekends for the beach. And part of the issue is there's two, if you know, between Eastdale and Archer Drive, there's two pathways there. And I'm sure you're familiar. But these two pathways are pretty much equal distance in that subdivision to give the public access to that beach. Okay. These two pathways have been there since 1921 in the plan of 658 that they were there. They were maintained as those two pathways. Somebody has put up a sign basically saying that it's private property and that you can't come down this pathway. I walked down that pathway and I had a police officer tell me he could arrest me for trespassing for that property. I've also done an extensive title search on the path, including the beachfront in my Allendale subdivision there. And what we were able to come up with that back in 1963, there was a quitclaim deed that was given, and those two paths were donated to the township at that time in 63. And they were donated by the Eberhards, that Charlie Eberhard, he basically had registered the subdivision, the plan 658 in 1921, and he had these two pathways set up. In this quitclaim deed, he's basically, when he dies in 1954.
Sorry, I'm so sorry, Mr. Fisher. We were just hoping to get to the question part.
Okay, the question's this. Okay.
Sorry, and before, I just want to relay that I am undertaking a comprehensive beach access and ownership project right now, and there's going to be a public meeting that's going to address all beach property. We're working collaboratively with the ministry. Infrastructure Ontario is getting involved as well. The town has also applied for a vesting order to ensure that we have proper ownership of Allenwood Beach. So there will be a public meeting just specifically for the beachfront, but I encourage you just, if you wanted to ask the question, and then that public meeting will be scheduled where more information will be relayed.
Okay, let's get to it, down to it. So the quitclaim deed is registered. He agrees to give these two lots, the heirs of Emberhart. He donates them to the township for $1 under the consideration.
Your question, Mr. Fisher?
Okay, he gave those, he donated those two pathways to the town, And in the quitclaim deed, the document that was agreed to by the lawyer for the city to keep those as public access. And it's written right in that agreement. It's basically sworn by the city or the township's lawyer.
Okay, Mr. Fisher, I'm going to
Okay,
just...
well, anyway, the whole issue being here, we understand that you're trying to close these two pathways down. And the issue with that is those were donated and the township had accepted the deeds based upon the fact that they're going to be as public access.
Okay, so I'm going to stop you there. Unless you have a direct question, I'm going to give a little more information from the town side. First of all, the town is not trying to close anything down. What we're trying to do is determine who owns the property. I can tell you that one of the paths in particular you're talking about, the town owns from the road 50% down that pathway. After that, the rest of that land is still in the name of Mr. Eberhardt. It is not in the name of the town of Wasaga Beach. The other issue is that when you go down these paths, and this is not just in the east end, in Allenwood Beach, it is also in the west end of town as you get to about 68th Street and you head west. There are many people there who also have not deeded access, but have deeds and surveys that show that they own to the water's edge. And just like the east end, there's the same situation. And just as Allenwood Beach in its entirety, although the town of Wasaga Beach purchased that in 2012 and paid for it, there is still question whether or not we rightfully own it. So we have a vesting order with the courts today to determine that. And until we determine that and the ministry determines the other ownerships, the park boundaries, so on and so forth, the town is not prepared to let people or lead people down a pathway that takes them onto private property. These pathways throughout Allenwood Beach, Wasaga Beach, New Wasaga Beach, Old Brox Beach, and it goes on and on and on, were meant as access to the water, not access to the beach. Now, some people would say, what's the difference? I see the ladies like, what are you talking about? The water is liquid. You can go into the water and go anywhere you want. But the beach is land, and it's possible that it's owned by somebody. So until we go through this process and we are certain who owns what, the municipality puts all of our taxpayers at peril if we're saying, here's a pathway that you can go down and you can use the beach. Because what happens is people get to the end of that pathway, they don't walk into the water and go one side or the other. They look down and say, what a beautiful beach, we're going to move down there a bit and sit down. And it's possible when you do that, you're on private property. Right. Now, because of that, this council is not prepared to allow the taxpayers to be in jeopardy in any way, shape, or form by inviting people to do so. So we won't be maintaining those paths any longer until, and we won't be inviting anyone to use those paths until the province and the courts make their decision as to what is accurate and what isn't. At that point, we can deal with it. Until then, if you decide to use a path and you end up on private property where you shouldn't be, and should you get arrested or charged, you do that at your own peril. It has nothing to do with the town of Wasaga Beach.
Okay, and this private property that you're talking about, like normally with a private property is you have to basically have a grant where somebody's granting you that piece of property, and then there's a grantee. What about if you have, like obviously these deeds?
We're, Mr. Fisher, with all due respect, we're not in a position to debate this with you.
Okay, but the thing is, you talked with your lawyer, and your lawyer says that he's not doing an extensive review.
We're going to be, when the clerk has completed her process, there will be a public meeting. We will answer all the questions we can at that time.
Everything, including the deeds that I have?
We will answer what we can, Mr. Fisher, until the process is complete.
Will you basically look at the deeds and the deed transfers?
Ladies and gentlemen, please.
Okay. What about the deeds when they changed and they became correction deeds and somebody grabbed extra land?
If however the land was attained, if it was done legally, it was done legally. Again, I'm going to ask you to...
If it's not done legally, then what are you going to do?
I'm not going to answer any further, okay? I'm going to ask you to have a seat.
Well, I'm not really done. I'm not really done. I still have 2 minutes here.
No, you don't have 2 minutes. You're done. You're done, Mr. Fisher. Thank you very much. Next. You were next because he was over there. Exactly. Go ahead.
Hi, my name is Lee Cannon. I've been in Wasai over 10 years now, and we've been playing ball hockey beside Walmart for the past 10 years. My family, friends, there's been kids, adults, every Sunday from March till November. It's my understanding Mark Crow donated the boards there to the town and moved it over to Main Street. Then we built the arena. There's a ball hockey painted arena behind there. Why would we not put those boards over there for the community to use? I understand you guys did the one thing for the roller skating for the town, but other than that, that thing's never been used since.
It's a good question. I'll turn it over to our CEO, Andrew, for that.
Yeah, thank you so much. What we are doing is actually getting ready for next summer. So we're into, unfortunately, a couple years of construction down on the beachfront. What that means is, for many of you who have attended our wonderful beachfront concerts, we had weekly concerts at a little stage beside the Dardanella. That all has to relocate for next summer and likely the summer after that. So we're going to be using the Glenwood parking lot. We're going to be activating that parking lot next summer. Part of that activation will involve those boards. We will likely, I'll look to the deputy, we will likely get the flooring that was in it previously, put that back in so that people can roller skate and use that. We will also bring food trucks, a stage for concerts, etc., so that we can actually have some fun stuff to do. For those of you who attended the Tom Cochran concert a few weeks ago, that was one windy concert. What we will likely do for next summer is put that stage right in the middle of Main Street so that we can't control the rain, but that will help deal with a bit of the wind. So it was a very deliberate move so that we can help create some activity for next summer and the following summer. And apologies that you were inconvenienced with that.
Well, my question still becomes, we're built a two-pad arena. We're bringing in a junior C team, I think it was, and you have a ball hockey court in behind that is not usable whatsoever.
So we can look at that. We'll commit to look at that.
Yeah, one of the reasons I think that Mr. Crow was wanting to move that is a huge liability, obviously. The town was happy to take it. It's not a cheap piece of equipment. But you make an excellent point. We obviously missed the boat there, and we will absolutely have a look at how we can integrate ball hockey back into that, and if not there, somewhere else. Yes, ma'am.
Hi, my name is Rochelle. I've been in Wasaga for about 2 years now. And about last year, I had seen a gentleman doing a survey on my streets on Smallman Drive, and I asked him what the plan was. And he had said that there was a plan to actually upgrade the storm drain systems in town. And then a few months later, I saw that we were actually working on River Road, which looks really nice, by the way. We can actually, it's walkable now. My question is, what's the time frame on actually updating the storm drain systems? Because as it currently stands on Smallman, it's an eyesore. We have no sidewalks. There are kids who come off the bus. They're walking up the streets. It's really not a really nice walkable street. I mean, it's a really lovely street compared to our neighboring street, Glen Eaton. They have sidewalks and the streets over. So I'm just wondering what is the timeline on actually updating the storm drains, because quite frankly, I'm on a corner lot and it's nasty. It's not draining anything, so yeah, just curious about that.
All right, I'm going to turn that over to Kevin Lalonde.
Thank you for your question. I wasn't expecting any questions tonight, so I'm glad I get one. So Smallman Drive is a rural cross-section. It's an open ditch system, low gradient, very shallow ditches, groundwater table's high. We're currently nearing the completion of a master drainage plan for the community, and we've been embarking on that for a couple of years now, and many of you may have been to the public meetings on that. That will be presented over the next couple of months, which will identify our priorities and our strategies for drainage improvements throughout the community. What I can tell you is drainage improvements, storm sewers, curb and gutters, sidewalks are very expensive. And there isn't a lot of funding available for that, so hence the reason for the master plan to help prioritize those improvements. And then as we move forward into the budget process year over year, we'll have a better long-term strategy in terms of how to better manage those improvements and when to get those pipes in the ground. But it's a challenge throughout the community. The majority of our streets, they don't have storm sewers. Some of them have ditches. Some of them don't have anything. We're very fortunate we have sandy soils, but at the same token, we have a lot of investment in drainage that's necessary in the long term. But as I said, it's very expensive, and there aren't too many funding opportunities for those types of systems. When they do become available, we have other competing priorities. You're looking at a $20 million project on River Road West right now, which is introducing storm sewers, curb and gutters, and certainly that corridor sees probably 20,000 cars more a day than Smallman, and so we need to be mindful of where those investments go. But we certainly recognize and appreciate some of the frustrations with residents about drainage throughout our community, and we're trying to find I guess a strategy that's feasible for us and for our tax base. And the sidewalks question?
Well, not the sidewalks necessarily, but the fact that it doesn't drain. I know one of the issues is that we have a lot of branches and leaves that really clog, so it's not really moving well. I don't know if there's anything that could be done to actually just help facilitate that, because it really is like in the summertime, mosquitoes, you see outside, not really pleasant.
Yeah. So, as you know, or as many of you know, the town is flat, and our outlet is the bay, and our outlets are limited, and the grade of the ditches and the grade of our storm sewer systems are controlled by the bay as we move back. If there's specific issues in your area that requires clean out, definitely give us a call at Public Works. We know we get a lot of calls about those types of issues, and we do evaluate and try and prioritize that. But if there's culverts that are obstructed and you're seeing visible flooding or property damage, we do prioritize those. I do know there was a survey done of Smallman. It's really just a matter of getting the resources in there to start with incremental improvements along that road. But if you're welcome to call the office, and we can have further conversation on that if you like.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Hello. I have a pretty loud voice, so can I just, okay. My question or concern or all of the above is I've been a part of the beach all my life, lived up here about 25 years ago. I've worked in the beach the whole time. I've worked at one of the local daycares. I've been a support worker in both elementary schools here, as well as at one point the alternative high school. One of my concerns is I always hear about this development, and I always hear about this is going to happen, and and I mean, I'm just to the point, believe none of what you hear and only half of what you see. I've worked with families that have nothing, children that have nowhere to go. I've watched kids sit there coming off a break and talk about all the good things they did over summer break. And I've watched kids sit there and they're in the clothes that they've been wearing for the last 3 years and they go nowhere. Here's my problem. As someone who makes well under $50,000 a year, I can't really afford to go anywhere. My problem also is I'm like, I don't know, a large number of people in this community. Unfortunately, I don't see a lot of my age people, but I'm here to represent for them as well, that up here, you have not mentioned one thing for families. We don't have a splash pad. So anything other than Skull Island, I mean, which it's great, but you can only do that so many times. When are you gonna start focusing on the youth of our community and our community as general? Because as it stands, I have 4 kids and they're expensive and it's hard to do anything outside this. I can only imagine making, no offense, but what you guys make, okay? But down here, we need stuff here in the beach for people to do. There's nothing. There's youth that are too old for the youth center, but too young for the bars, and yet nowhere for them to go. And I wanna hear, I wanna see, something, because you took away Snowman Mania, which was free.
Ma'am, sorry, so we'll just be able to address that question and give you some answers there. I'll turn it over.
Yeah.
Sorry, I just wanted to remind you that you did take away another free event for families to put something that would cost people money to go. I think it was the concerts, I'm not sure, but did
Nope,
you?
the summer concerts were still free.
Snowman Mania, that's winter.
Oh, okay. Yeah, no, we hear you loud and clear. Many of you know part of the reason that I agreed to come back to work for this town is I have young children, and I bring them up every weekend in the summer, and my kids look at me and say, we have a lot of fun on the beach, love swimming, but beyond that, this town's gotten kind of boring. I grew up in this town. I used to work at Waterworld. My sister was a lifeguard at Waterworld. I saw it with the water slides and the arcades and all that fun stuff. I'm passionate about trying to bring some of that back. It's not easy because there aren't a lot of people that knock on our door and say, I want to build a haunted house. I want to build a splash pad. There's a reason that stuff went away, because it doesn't make money. What I will tell you is the mayor, myself, the deputy, had a great conversation with the premier, I mentioned a few weeks ago. He said to us, you guys need family attractions. So we said, we agree with you. Can you help us get some? So that's part of the reason we want to get some of these provincial assets in the portfolio of the Ministry of Tourism. That's their business, is to attract family-friendly things like water parks, like other, there's a whole list we could go through. But it's important that the Ministry of Tourism and the province works with us, because that's not easy to do. But we will also look at opportunities for us to invest in some attractions. So we hear you loud and clear. As redevelopment happens, it's not just about condos and shops. It's about climbing walls and slides and all that fun stuff, Ferris wheels. So we have an eye to that, because I agree with you. It's 100% important that we deliver that for all generations.
Hopefully you can hear us as well as you kind of heading back to your seat, but Snowman Mania is going to be there Family Day weekend 2025.
At work. Okay. The other thing I want to add to that is we realized while it was happening that, you know what, we missed the boat here this year with the concerts and not continuing with Snowman Mania. And so it will absolutely be back. With respect to the splash pad, I couldn't agree with you more. Why the splash pad was closed when it was is beyond me, and not wait until development was starting. But it's something that I think we could reach out to corporates, citizens, and sponsorship for, and I'm not so sure that with this municipality and our business community that we won't find a way to rebuild another splash pad as well. Yes, ma'am.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. My name's Roberta Medill, and I live on Ramblewood Drive. And myself and a lot of my neighbors on Ramblewood are concerned about the big box store going in and the abundance of traffic that's going to be produced by the big box store. Ramblewood is a collector, designated as a collector street, which means we're only supposed to be collecting vehicles from the ports and the presents that are around our neighborhood, and then taking the cars out to 45, for instance, a wider street. With the abundance of traffic, people are going to have difficulty getting in and out of their driveways. We have 4 stop signs already in a 2-kilometer length of street, and people don't stop at those as they're supposed to. These are problems for the residents. However, our major problem is that we have an elementary school on Ramblewood, and in the morning and the afternoon, we have what they call vehicle congestion, because a lot of the families of parents drive their kids to school and drop them off. And that takes up about a half of one of the lanes when they come, and they stretch all the way across the school and beyond the school. So some children come running to their cars, they run between the two cars, and they run an open side door on the driver's side. Very dangerous, as we all know. You don't run between parked cars, but it happens. And if there's somebody that's just gone through the 58th stop sign, that child is in very much danger. That we're concerned about that. We're also concerned because if you look at the roads that are there now, Ramblewood and Moseley are the two main roads that anybody from the East End, whether it be people from Wasaga or Elmville, would be coming across. They'd be coming across Moseley, and when they hit 45, the road narrows right down. It can hardly contain the traffic that it has now. So people will move over to Ramblewood, and we'll have all this traffic, and it doesn't seem fair that it's going through a subdivision. I don't recall ever seeing a Costco, as it's been spoken by some people, that's going in.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you. And we'll turn it over to maybe Kevin Lalonde.
Thank you for your question. Yeah, certainly you're going to see increased traffic. You absolutely will. That is a collector road. We're limited by the number of east-west routes we do have in our community. That collector road was built to a standard to accommodate higher volumes of traffic, and it was built to accommodate the business parklands, which was intended to be for that purpose. As Costco follows through with their applications, there's transportation and traffic impact studies that they do need to prepare to satisfy our staff, our engineering staff, as well as the MTO. So as part of that process, we do look at those implications that it has in the area, the neighborhood, and the intersections and the congestion. We also undertake transportation study updates every 5 years. In fact, subject to budget, we did have a transportation multimodal master plan slated for next year, but through these updates, we do look at intersection traffic and warrants for improvements, whether it be designated left turn lanes or improved signalization. What I can tell you is certainly 58th Street in Moseley is a challenge for most people in the morning peaks and the afternoons, and that's an intersection that we're looking at right now to help improve the left turn movements ahead of the full urbanization of that stretch of Moseley Street. But to your point, you will see more traffic through that corridor, absolutely. And that road is a collector road and is designed to manage that traffic. We will monitor the traffic in those conditions, and like I said, as we go through the planning process, there's a detailed evaluation that's undertaken by engineering staff and the Ministry of Transportation on the road network.
If I could also add, Costco is the worst kept secret in our community. We are not trying to be coy with all of you. We are not allowed to officially announce. We have been asked by the headquarters not to officially announce that Costco is coming. That is why we keep talking about a big box that sells $1.50 hot dogs. We're not trying to be disrespectful. To be clear though, we understand that they will be submitting a site plan, the big box that sells hot dogs, within the next week or so. It is not 100% a go yet. The big boss will fly in on his plane sometime in October, November, once everything is in place, and he will give thumbs up, thumbs down. That's how they operate. That's how they operate in every community. So everybody who works in Aurelia who's been telling people that it's coming, it's not 100% just yet. It is likely, but that's why we haven't come out and officially announced.
Sorry, we're going to go to our right. Thank you so much. Sir?
Can I just add one more comment just on that? We're also recognizing that area is also a community safety zone. I want to let the public know, and staff are actively working through the analysis of automated speed enforcement, so mobile speed radar cameras that you've heard that are deployed in other communities. We have the ability, subject to council, to deploy these devices in community safety zones, and that's something that we're looking at for hopefully implementation in the next year. But it will help with speeding and those types of challenges within the community safety zones, so in proximity to parks and schools and other designated areas. So that is something that is a step forward from a traffic safety perspective, and I think will help reduce the resources of our OPP, and so they can focus on and prioritize in some other areas. So mobile speed cameras are something being considered by staff. Again, hasn't been to council yet, but it's something that presents an opportunity for us to improve safety in your neighborhoods.
Thanks, Kevin. And I apologize for cutting people off. We're just being mindful of the lineups that we do have, and we want to hear from as many of you as we possibly can this evening. Sir, please proceed.
Yes, my name is Bruce Moore, and I'm here mainly to question the development on the beach. And we saw the pictures at the last meeting. Again, you showed it tonight. Why are some of these pictures not being done and on billboards? We've had hundreds of thousands of people here in the last number of months. And I talked to many people on the beach, and I say, well, they talk about stores, and I say, yeah, but this is the end. And that's all coming down. Oh, why? What's happening? They don't know. And I think we should let the people know, or can we let outsiders know what's going on, okay? And I think the developers should be into it as well, because can they not put up some signage of what's going to be coming if they have committed to it?
Thank you, sir. And Andrew's ready to answer.
Absolutely. Thank you. You're bang on with your comment. We agree wholeheartedly, and we will be doing exactly that. We mentioned earlier that the town will be beginning construction on Beach Drive. We've already talked about putting up some billboards, forgive our mess, here's why, here's what's going on, etc. We have to get to a point with developers where we know exactly what it is they're going to build, agreements signed, etc. And then they will launch sales, marketing, billboards, sales center, all of that stuff. So all of that is coming. We're just not quite at that point yet. I expect next summer you will see.
Not till next summer.
Yeah, you'll see that next summer.
So we're tearing buildings down starting next month.
Correct.
Okay. But we don't really have a plan then for until next summer.
No.
We have a plan.
Let's be clear. We have a plan.
Okay.
And we have a solid plan. At the end of the day, if all the technicalities around when signs go up, when A happens, B happens, C happens, was quick and easy, it would have been done a long time ago. It isn't. It is complicated. There's a lot of moving parts in that. And so at the end of the day, until we have absolute firm agreements in place with developers, they're not going to spend the money to put the signs in place and so on and so forth. And the town's not going to spend that money because the developer should be spending that money. So we're waiting for the developer. We're virtually there, very, very close. Once everything is signed, the LOIs are complete, the offers of purchase and sale are done and agreed to, then the developer would be more comfortable, of course, to spend dollars to advertise. At that point, we're quite comfortable the developers will be moving at lightning speed in order to advertise what's coming. It won't be happening willy-nilly. The town and council will have to agree with what is happening, but it will be an expense of the developer, not you, the taxpayer. If you want to sign tomorrow, Bruce, write me the check.
I'm asking, is there a problem with the financing with the developers? Have they not committed as yet?
Absolutely no issue with financing with the developers. Absolutely not.
No problem.
No issue.
Okay.
Thank you, sir. And we're just going to go to the lady on my left. Thank you so much.
Hi there, I'm Lisa Cook. I live in the Ramblewood area, and I just need to touch base on the Ramblewood just for one more moment. I'm an avid runner all through Wasaga Beach. I use Carly Patterson on a regular basis. I am thankful for the sidewalks on Ramblewood. Otherwise, I am certain I would have reached my peril at this point. My question is, it seems to be there's something going in between Rodriam Road and the elementary school at St. Noel Chabanel, as well as this big box that sells $1.50 date night hot dogs that is potentially coming. And as the avid runner who also had young children in this area, I am concerned, again, about these collector lanes. We know they're collector lanes. We know they're not going to get any bigger. I'm also concerned about our side streets, especially the ones in my neighborhood in Bay Colony, where people don't have enough parking along Ramblewood, or they do have enough parking and they're not parking there, and they're now parking on our side streets, and there's no parking signs going up. People are flying down our side roads, and as a runner, I can tell you twice already since, June, I have hit the front of somebody's car with my hand to shout stop so they don't hit me. I don't want to get hurt, and I don't want to see the children in our area get hurt. I don't want to see the seniors in our area get hurt. So I guess the question is, with date night place going in, as well as this whatever is happening, which I would like someone to answer what's going on between Rodriam and St. Noel Chabanel, what are we doing? Because for those of us that are active, the Carly is not always a place that I can go, especially in the winter. I need a safe spot that I can go running, and the Dreadmill is not it.
Thank you. Kevin?
In terms of the development adjacent to the school, I'm not familiar with that file. I can't speak to that, but we may have a planner here, but I don't know if there's any active files for that. I do know the land you're speaking of, but I'm not aware of any active planning file. They may be doing some site work, but in terms of testing, but I'm not aware of any.
Putting red pipes, and they've been in there clearing without clearing.
So Trevor,
we back onto them,
is there anything you can add?
Trevor's our Director of Planning, so he can hopefully answer this.
Just so that I understand, you're talking about the property to the east of the school?
Yes.
And on the same side of the school?
On the same side of the school, leading up to Rodriam Road.
Right. So there is no current application on that property. We've received a pre-con application a few months ago, but nothing formal. Maybe what you're describing is the developer or the owner doing their servicing work or their studies in order to come in with an application. But as far as I know, there's no formal application as of yet.
Okay, so then what do we do to reduce what's going on already on our roads and our streets around where people are either parking right on the road on Ramblewood, or they're parking on the side streets in lieu of in their driveways, which is not safe for the people that are out there trying to walk and do, and now we're going to add in the traffic from the big box store.
Well, before one of these gentlemen attempt to answer your question, I just think it's important to say that if any gentleman wants to take you on date night to Costco for a $1.50 hot dog, don't go with them.
You know what, though? It's membership only.
All right. Touche. All right, who's taking a shot at this, gentleman?
I'll jump in, Kevin. You can add if you feel like it. These microphones are horrible this evening. What you're describing is the natural evolution of a community. As more homes get built, it gets busier, there's more traffic, you have to deal with parking. So we're going to be into a new world over the next few years, and it's going to require new tools. We were chatting a couple days ago. We need to look at a town-wide parking strategy to determine where you can park on streets, et cetera. So All of these things are about managing your community, and they're not easy discussions, I'll tell you that. And it involves sitting down with local residents, understanding the issues that you're facing on your local streets, and coming up with intelligent approaches to deal with those issues. There's no silver bullet that's going to fix all of this. Most communities go through it. There's a bit of trial and error, a bit of working with the community to come up with contextually sensitive solutions that respond to what the community is looking for. So again, that's a process. We want to hear from you. We're quite willing to come visit, sit down, walk your community with you, and understand what we can do to help make your community more livable.
Thank you.
I think it's also important to point out that the growth of our municipality, just like many others, is somewhat dictated to us by the province and the federal government. So it's not a case of your local council, no matter what municipality you may live in, who is wanting to build a city. The growth numbers are dictated, and the times that is allotted for us to get to those numbers. But at the end of the day, we're in a growing country, in a growing province, and in a growing community. And with that comes growing pains. Hopefully with that comes the positives as well, that gives us more services, more places to shop, to dine, and to go out and enjoy, and builds a better, more complete community. And Wasaga Beach, quite frankly, I've been here since 1965, has suffered from being a complete community for a long time. And, I often hear people say, I moved here from the city to get away from growth. And so, unfortunately, in this day and age, you're going to have to go a whole lot further north to get away from growth. It's just a fact of life. And it's not easy to deal with. It's not easy for staff. It's not easy for council. And we absolutely understand and know it's not easy for everyone in our community.
My name is Debbie Conrad, and thank you for the opportunity to speak. I want to speak on the motion that you put forward to the province and the move of Park 1, Park 2, part of Park 4, and obviously you talked about Nancy Island. Your news release indicates at minimum, once lands are moved out of Ontario parks into infrastructure or tourism, those are economic mandates. I worked at senior levels of government for many years, and I think people need to understand those lands that we now consider parkland will not have protections on them, and therefore are open to development. And we're not talking picnic shelters and things like that, and picnic tables. Large infrastructure can go in there. So my question to you is, have there been discussions about building large infrastructure in those areas? And my concern is it's a slippery slope. Once you start deregulating parks and natural spaces, there's nothing that says you can't do it to 5 to 6 to Blueberry. Not saying you will, but I understand how things work. And I think people need to understand that the parks are, Andrew, more than just parking lots. They are natural spaces for people to enjoy. And those parking lots allow accessibility to the beach for families.
Absolutely.
And so I really am very concerned, because if we look at the city and we look at Ontario Place, those are public lands that are being cleared for a private spa. So I'm not accusing this council, I'm not saying you're doing that, but I do think that you need to be open and transparent, especially when this discussion...
We hear you.
But no, the discussion happened without consultation, and the motion happened without consultation. You consulted with us.
Can we respond?
Can I say one more thing?
Okay, if you could wrap it up, please.
Yes. If you wanted a holistic approach, you could have had a great opportunity when you looked at the main drag redevelopment to look at a holistic approach looking at the beach in whole, and you didn't. And so you've put us at a disadvantage by passing this motion.
So I'll start, and then I'll hand it to Andrew. the first part is we couldn't have looked at the whole beach in its totality because we own a very small portion of it. The rest is owned and controlled, I'm going to answer your question, by Ontario Parks, or the MECP, sorry. But what's most important, it's why the motion indicates that we're asking for a task force. A task force that will be made up of the Town of Wasaga Beach, Ministry of Tourism, the MECP, Infrastructure Ontario, so as that we can have these discussions. Believe me when I say that no one understands or is more concerned about the viability, not only economically, but from an environmental standpoint than council. We understand that the beach is everything to our community. It is our heart and soul, and it is vitally important that it is maintained and it is looked after as such. Unfortunately, the last 50-year experiment that has been in place, which started to be the Lands and Forest, to the Ministry of Natural Resources, to the Ministry of Natural Resources and Forestry, and now to the MECP, has not worked. It has not worked in any way, shape, or form for the town of Wasaga Beach or our citizens. And so we need to get to the table to have discussions to determine who should be looking after this area, how it should be looked after, and to ensure that agreements that were made back in 1978 are honored by the province. And so, again, this is one of those things that is not easy, but we're working at it. And we're confident that we can come out with a solution that works for both the environment and for our heart and soul and our one and only industry, which is tourism. And we're going to work hard at that. It's not going to happen overnight. We're dealing with a higher level of government. We know that we move slow. We know the province moves slower, and it just gets slower as you go up the line. But we're working towards that.
Thank you.
Andrew?
If we could respond to your question first.
Yeah, but my
no,
question.
please let us respond
discussions,
first.
Yeah.
Sustainability, building a sustainable community, think of it as a bar stool with 3 legs: economic, social, and an environment. Some would argue there's a 4th leg called culture. In order to build a sustainable community, you need to strike a balance between those, or the bar stool tips over. Ontario Parks, you seem to be smirking at this, but please let me finish. Ontario Parks, in my opinion, because they have not been funded properly, has let all of their assets fall into a state of disrepair. That's not acceptable for the world's longest freshwater beach. We all believe that the environment is absolutely important, but I think to deal with a lack of funding, the excuse has been, oh, we'll just naturalize everything, we'll let it go. I don't think that's acceptable, and it's gone to the extreme where at Allenwood, fences have gone up everywhere, and if you talk to some of the wardens, they will say, we are actively trying to keep people off the beach here. That's not okay in a community that was taken over by the province in 1969 with a recreational mandate. The Ministry of Ontario Parks has switched their mandate over the last couple decades. They are now actively pursuing an environmental mandate to the detriment of the economy of this town. That's not okay, and we need to strike the right balance here. Again, we are the world's longest freshwater beach. We need to create the right environment that's worthy of being there. We are not asking to go out and bulldoze sand dunes and get rid of all of the parking. What we're saying is, after 50 years, it's time to create a new plan for the next 50 years that will guide reinvestment on provincial assets, because we don't think they've been pulling their weight. Thank you.
Can you?
I'll just, I think it's important for everyone's information to add to that. This is about much more than just our beachfront. This is about all of the lands. 25% of our land mass is owned by the MECP. There is hundreds of millions of dollars in assets along streets like Shore Lane and on the beachfront that were expropriated and are not part of the provincial park, technically, although the province several years ago brought it into the provincial park so they didn't have to pay tax on it. So the taxpayer of Wasaga Beach has been footing that bill. So there's a lot more than just the beachfront at stake here. I want to talk quickly about Nancy Island, because Nancy Island, I can tell you, is near and dear to my heart. As a young child, I went to Nancy Island in the summer just about every day. I loved it. Nancy Island is there because of the War of 1812 and the battle that was fought right there. And it is one of the main reasons that we today are a British colony and not an American colony, because of Lieutenant Miller Worsley and that battle. And after that battle, him and some First Nations folks paddled from the Nottawasaga River to Fort Michigan-Mackinac, and along the way commandeered another American ship, and we won that battle. And here we are today in the greatest country in the world. Nancy Island today is an absolute disgrace. And I don't mind saying that out loud. It's disgraceful what the province has allowed to happen there. Part of the island is condemned. The lighthouse, you can't climb the stairs, but even if you could, you can't get there because the bridge leading to it is condemned. So it's about finding a balance. It's about doing what is best for both the environment and the economy of this community. And this council is determined to work with the province to get that done. Thank you.
Thank you. Next question to the left.
Good evening, councillors and fellow...
Sorry, sir, the mic.
Is that better? Okay. Good evening, councillor and fellow community members of this wonderful Wasaga. I exclude the word beach because I've been here 7 years and I can't go to the beach in the summer. Traffic is bad. People are pooping in the sand. All this kind of stuff going on.
Sir, I'm...
So,
no.
That wasn't my question, sorry.
No. You know what? With all due respect, I'm going to stop you there.
And that's fine. That's not my question.
If you have a question, please ask the question, but
Yes.
we're not going to get into...
No, I'm not here to
Okay.
talk about that. My question is two parts. One, are you going to be extending or doing something about the traffic to get to the beach? Because in the summer, it's impossible to spend 40 minutes to get from Ramblewood and Walmart, Loblaws to the beach. And number two, and I understand it's a hard question, so please bear with me. The other question is, regarding the traffic on Ramblewood, regarding the new store coming in, yes, we've talked about it, but we're not addressing an issue that is existing now, because now we have a bike lane that no one can park on because it's illegal. I know I got a $75 fine to stop at my mom's house. But we're going to have a lot more cars on there. People can't park there, but people can park in front of the school and not get ticketed. So
Okay, I think we've addressed a lot of your comments. So
yes, but now the problem with which we've missed is that once Ramblewood gets full and Moseley, which needs to be widened in a turning lane. I know you guys talked about it. That's great.
Okay, I think you're rehashing.
Okay, so the question is, what about the other side street, like Dennis and Allegra Drive, that's going to get flooded with cars that can't make it through Moseley, can't make it through Ramblewood? And,
Okay.
and what are we going to do about people coming north? Are we going to open up Lionsgate to 26?
Thank you, sir. So the staff and council has committed to looking at the Ramblewood issue. We appreciate the comments, but we are going to move on to the right here. Sir.
But I do want to answer your first question, and that was the traffic issue getting to the beach.
Yes, thank you.
Sir, I've lived here since 1965, born and raised. I go to the beach in the summer just about every day, maybe not to go and swim, but I go down and see what's happening. Other than a long weekend, I don't have any issue getting to the beach. Now, does it take me 5 minutes, 10 minutes? Sometimes, does it take me longer? Absolutely. But that happens in any community at a busy time of year if it has any kind of tourism attached to it. It takes you 45 minutes to get from Ramblewood to the beach, depending on where you're going, if you're talking a beach area 1, because our speed limit is 50 kilometers and 40 kilometers. It takes that much time to get through town. So, you know, my son-in-law says to me all the time, when is the mayor going to fix the problem it takes to get from one end of town to the other, and I tell them when pigs fly, because it is what it is, and safety is first. But I can tell you, we have no idea today what traffic is. Back in the 50s, 60s, and 70s, you couldn't come into this municipality if you didn't have a driver's license to show where you lived, that you lived here, or a hotel receipt that you had a room to go to. So those were traffic issues. We understand the issues that are there today. You can see we're widening River Road West. The next phase of that will probably be 45th Street to Highway 26. But it takes time, it takes money, $20 million right now to go from Veterans Way to Blueberry Trails. It's costly, and we have to do it in a way and a manner that is affordable to the residents.
Thank you,
Next
sir,
question.
to my right.
Thank you. My name is Donald Smith. I'm an executive consultant to various municipalities, federal governments, provincial governments, Infrastructure Ontario. I lived here 30 years. And I'm adding on to what Sterling brought up with regards to the Ellenwood easements going on to the navigable waterway, which is Georgian Bay. You alluded to, Your Worship, that it only goes down 50% to the beach. You also alluded that property owners own to the beachfront. Both of those is, you had the opportunity to look at why it only went to 50% of the beach. The lake has decreased. It's gone down 23 centimeters in the last 7 months due to the erosion of Lake St. Clair River and Lake St. Clair. And what you're saying is that as the water erodes, these property owners get more and more land. What happens when it goes to Collingwood?
So
that's question one.
Okay.
Why did you not look at where their boundaries were next to those easements on the properties on each side of where the original boundaries were? Because no one owns down to the waterfront. Those are navigable waterways. I park my boat in front of the first easement, which is next to the CAO's place where he brings his kids up in the summertime, and I've got accosted. I'm supposed to have unobstructed access to a navigable waterway. That's the only unobstructed access there. There's 2 easements that were put in there to service the community, besides going all the way around to the Ellenwood Provincial Beach. Why did you not go and look at what the original property lines were based on the high water mark areas for those areas while you were looking at the easement property line?
I'll look to the clerk who's dealing with this to answer, and then I'll speak to the other issue.
Thank you. And as I alluded to earlier, we're going to be having a public meeting, but right now we're doing our due diligence, and we're doing exactly what you stated, is we're looking at all those items. We're looking at the easements, we're looking at the access, we're looking at the subdivision plan. So again, we're going to bring that back to a public meeting, where we will provide the public with the information that we do find, and then council will have decisions brought to them, again, at a public meeting. So with that, I'm going to go to Leslie to my left. Thank you.
I have one more question.
Sorry.
Will this CAO?
Sir,
Will the CAO
I'm going
be
to
part of
go
the-
to Leslie on my left. I'm
No,
so sorry, the beach
sorry.
item.
Madam Clerk, I'll answer it. So your question is, will the CAO be involved?
Yes.
The CAO has already declared that he will not be involved, and he declared a conflict of interest right up front. The CAO has not been involved. The CAO will not be involved. This is being dealt with by the clerk and the deputy CAO, and it will all come to council.
Okay, I just wanted, because he owns next to one of the easements.
That's correct. No doubt about that.
Okay.
No, I don't actually. My mother does.
Okay, that's fine. All right, so...
By affiliation.
Absolutely, but he will not be involved in that in any way, shape, or form. All right, thank you.
Hopefully this works. Hi, most of you know me, Leslie Hodgson. I live off of Klondike Park, so this is going to be a question for Kevin. We live in Hometown, and I live on a little street, very little, 6 houses, blind corner that was redone a few years ago. However, it's still a blind corner. The speed limit has been put up as an orange 30 sign to go down to. I can tell you right now, nobody goes down to that. What our community has talked about is asking you if it's possible to put up a white 30 sign. Not that people do 30 on this road. We risk our lives every day coming out of that street. Even a mirror would help us to get out of that street. I watch my 84-year-old neighbor crawl and have to sit there for 5 minutes to try and see around that corner. I do it myself. Every time I leave my house, I have to try and not be hit by somebody because they're riding the shoulder. So is there a way of fixing this problem?
So, thank you for your question. You'll recall we've invested considerable funds into that intersection. We're very limited in terms of property, and if we were to improve that radius, we would require a few homes, probably your neighbor's home and a couple off of Watson there. So we have invested in that radius, but we'll take that under advisement and we'll consider if there's any opportunity for reducing the regulatory speed limit. But again, you know, speeding is an enforcement, OPP enforcement issue, and I think if residents have concerns with speeding in their neighborhoods, sure, we have a traffic calming policy that you can apply through, but the OPP need to know of these areas, and if they don't know, they don't patrol it, and they focus on select areas. So if there are speeding issues, if people are rolling the stop signs, the OPP need to know that so they can make strategic enforcement plans around that. But in terms of that bend, we try to do the best we could given the constraints, and we know we've improved the drainage, we know we've improved the sight lines, we know we've added the flashing signs there, we've taken trees out, and so we have done what we can, but we'll take it into consideration in terms of the change of the regulatory speed. But there are no plans today, but we'll take that back.
If I may, if I may, the mirror, there was a mirror that existed there many years ago on a hydro pole, and that would help us tremendously to be able to see around that corner. So that would be my suggestion to you, because, like I said, you can't see.
It's not, the mirror is not a solution from a liability perspective. It's something residents tend to put on trees, and if they do that, the residents are doing that. It's not something the municipality would do at any intersection. You do see it a lot in the States, and you do see it throughout neighborhoods, but it's not something that's recognized provincially through the regulations we follow, and a mirror wouldn't be something we would recommend, and I think we've had that conversation, I think, with some of your neighbors before. But if a neighbor has a mirror that they can put on their property that might help you, then they'll inherit that liability. If there is an accident and they blame the mirror because it was foggy, or there was water droplets on it, or it was turned to a point where you couldn't see it you did the day before, there's a lot of liability issues with that.
So I want to, am I hearing that if the neighbors were in agreement to put a mirror up, that could be done, Kevin?
I'm not recommending that, Your Worship. I think if what a private property owner does on their own property is their business, but it wouldn't be something we'd recommend or even suggest they do.
Okay.
Yeah, no, if that answers your question.
The other thing we can do is we can ask the OPP and Public Works. We also have speed monitoring devices that we could put out there to see what the actual average speeds are. I think that's a good place to start. So I think we can look at doing that in the not too distant future.
Thank you.
All right.
Sir?
Good evening. My name's Jerry Komlevich. I live on Shore Lane. I'm wondering, what is the level of jurisdiction that you're seeking from the tourism ministry as opposed to the present ministry? Will you have total jurisdiction over the beach, the quality of the beach, and so on?
Sorry, there's a bit of an echo. I couldn't quite.
Okay,
so you were asking about the level of jurisdiction that we're seeking from the Ministry of Tourism?
Yes.
So what we've asked is that the province create a task force, as the mayor mentioned earlier, where we bring tourism, Ontario Parks, and whatever other ministry has relevance to Wasaga Beach to the table, and let's understand which assets belong in which ministry. We've already identified some, like Nancy Island, we think absolutely belong in the ministry.
What I'm specifically looking at is how much control would the town have over the beach?
Today we have none.
I know. What are you looking for?
Again,
What is your goal, and how attainable do you think it's going to be?
I think the goal is to bring the province to the table and have these discussions and figure out what makes sense. Would we like to have control? Absolutely. So that all of you can control your own future.
Well, never mind
but
the
again,
future. What I'd like to see is that the world's longest freshwater sand beach is exactly as I've just stated, those 4 or 5 words, okay? Instead of a long, many kilometers of compost manure.
So I think we can move on from that.
And therefore, what level in your jurisdiction would you have in actually turning that beach into a true beach?
So again, it is a beach today. I think what we're talking about is we'd like to get the province to the table. You mentioned world's longest freshwater beach. It needs to have the love and attention and dollars that's worthy of that. I can't answer that today until they come to the table. The comment about the poop on the beach, I'm just going to let that one go.
Yeah, no, it wasn't it wasn't poop, it was manure, and I understand where you're coming from, what's picked up and dumped and so on and so forth. I'll just add to that, and that is that, in the beginning of time, and the lands and forest, and when this property was taken over by the province, it was exceptionally well maintained. And over the years, that has just simply degraded. We need to get back to a point where the beach is well maintained. To your point, sir, that we have the longest freshwater sand beach in the world. We understand. All right.
Hi, my name's Elaine. I live in the Westbury development area, and I lived in Muskoka for over 21 years, and I moved here because they have out-taxed themselves over there. And I kind of see the same flow happening here, so it gets me a little bit excited because property taxes are going to go up. My background is in finance and research and the economy, so I've been making my own notes. I've gone through a lot of research to come up with this, and bear with me because I have a very bad cold, but I didn't want to miss tonight. I see that the local governments are overextending themselves a lot right now, and that's a concern for all taxpayers because of your homes and your taxes. And I look at Wasaga Beach as a smaller community. I looked up the population. Actually, I went to the county of Simcoe and got the numbers because I didn't know if it was more than 25,000, the sign that comes in. And they said officially it was 20,675, but that was the last census that was done in 2018. So I'm looking around and I'm looking at the new development, the Recplex. I walk there. I think it's a wonderful place. It's a beautiful development. I hear about all these other things that are going on, and I'm going, but there's only like 21,000 people here. Where is the money coming from? So, according to my analysis, there's something else going on here because I don't think the amount of tax dollars is sustainable to do everything that you're doing right now, and that concerns me as a resident and an owner here. And I saw this all happen during Muskoka times because I would go to town council meetings in Bracebridge and Gravenhurst when I lived there, and it's the same rhythm that's happening, and that's all I can say.
Ma'am, sorry. I'm just going to allow our CFO to comment briefly, and I encourage again everybody, the 2025 budget will be tabled with council October 17th, and there'll be a public meeting subsequent to that that will answer a lot of these questions, but I'll let the CFO.
Clarify something? This is an open mic, and I don't need clarification. I know my numbers, I know my sound mind, but I just want to get on with recently.
Well, are you asking a question that you would like answered?
I will be asking a question.
Okay.
Then ma'am, I think you need...
Recently, I attended a couple of town council meetings with keen interest in a particular topic that was going on. It was the salary increases, okay? And adopted, and anyway...
What is your question, ma'am?
It was adopted, and without any input from the public or anybody in the galley. And then there was also, I went there at the same meeting, there was talk about the Green Space Development Initiative.
Okay, ma'am, I think we're going to have to wrap this up because there are others waiting to speak.
You know what, this is very important, and you know what, you guys fill in a lot of time that was unnecessary as well, because there are a lot of concerned citizens here, whether you think it or not.
Ma'am,
okay,
no,
I have one question.
No, listen,
Brian
please.
Smith, I called you 5 times when I moved here and I wanted to meet with you. I'm Elaine Smith, and I never heard from you. Then I requested on August...
No.
Okay, ma'am.
Elaine, please. No, listen. You've stood here, you've gone on, you have not asked a question. I want to make something very clear. Council doesn't have to do this. We do this because we believe it's the right thing to do, to have these open forums. And we do it because we respect our citizens and want them to have these opportunities. And so I ask that you respect the 3 people behind you and the 3 people in this line. If you don't have a question, then you'll have to move on. You stand and say, I know my numbers. Well, you just said the population of Wasaga Beach is 21,000. It's 25,000. So there's to your numbers. So I'm going to give you one last chance. If you have a question, ask it now, or we're going to move on.
Okay. I left 2 messages for Nicole Rubin.
Do you have a question?
No, it is a question. I asked her, I wanted to get details on the financials of the town of Wasaga Beach. This was back in August 6th and also August the 14th. I left voicemail messages for her. I never heard back from her.
For who?
For me.
Nicole Rubin.
Okay, I'm going to suggest you call Town Hall tomorrow and you ask for the Chief Financial Officer if you want answers to financial questions.
From your receptionist that is the lady that I should speak to.
I will stay after this meeting and put you through the website where you can find all those documents. I'll also provide my direct line and my email address, and I will have a meeting with you as well. I just want to move on here. Thank you.
No, you're finished. Thank you. Next question, ma'am.
Okay, we're
you are
moving on.
finished.
We're moving
Thank
on.
you. Ma'am, go.
My name is Valerie, and I came here 2 years. I walk the beach 2 to 3 times a week from Beach 1 through Beach 2 and circle back. First of all, if it hasn't been said, kudos to staff members who are out there, kids and city workers, every day by 7, maybe a little later. Now we're all walking a little later, but at 7 a.m., 7:30, picking up the garbage that unfortunately people do leave from the beach. They are fantastic, and I don't think they're recognized enough for that. They're picking up cigarette butts, they're picking up everything. And because of them, the Beach 1 road looks great. You cannot say the same about Beach 2. I participated in the April cleanup. I know there were city staff out there of the beach that was put together by the Climate Committee. And I walked that beach, boardwalk. The garbages aren't picked up between 7 and 8 a.m. It's disgraceful. Something does need to be done. I'm really not sure. I'm not very up on policies or on what group needs to take care of it, but someone needs to be taking care of it. It is disgraceful. It looks nothing like the beachfront, and to have people showing up, paying money to park there and go to a beach, it's awful. And I say kudos to the staff for participating tonight. You're on your own time.
Thank you. And we appreciate that. I always appreciate, as does council, when someone compliments our staff because they work extremely hard. So thank you. To your point, the town looks after Beach Area 1, the street to the curb, and we also look after Beach Area 2 to a certain portion where the province owns up to 6th Street. And I think what you're saying is those areas are in pretty good shape. It speaks to our point as to why we need to sit down with the province, because all of those other lands you're talking about are provincially owned and part of the provincial park. And so thank you for mentioning that, because it just reinforces why we need to sit down with the provincial parks and with the ministries in order to find a solution. Thank you.
Evening, Mark. Good evening. Thank you very much. Mark Weingarten. I've lived here for 21 years now, and I have followed politics quite closely since 2010, roughly. And I want to thank you for tonight's opportunity, not for myself, but for everybody in the room. There have been a wide variety of people step up to the mics, and they've brought up incredible issues. Some of these issues, based on the responses I've seen on facial expressions from staff and from council, they didn't know about. So the public is bringing to you important issues, and they're bringing them to their neighbors as well, and I think that's important. As I said, I follow politics quite closely, and I watched the last council meeting. And in the last council meeting, I don't know how many people here are aware that you can follow every council meeting on YouTube live, and then you can also go to the town's YouTube channel, and you can re-watch it as often as you like. At one point, there was only maybe 6 people watching. There's a little counter in the corner. At one point, it was up to 40. It goes up and down. My point is, there's a lot more people in this room today than watched the last council meeting. And at one point in that council meeting, one of our councillors brought up a notice of motion and wanted to have a public comment period reintroduced to the practices at council. Now, I said I've followed politics quite closely for years. At one point, one of our councils even had a comment period at the beginning of council and a question period at the end of council. I would like maybe the mayor or I don't know who this would be the best answer, but please elaborate on council's decision to not resume the open comment period at the beginning of meetings. In listening to the reasons at council, it wasn't clear if it was mostly because the meetings are already too long, or one council member actually said that the public would hijack the meetings. Those words were said. Yep. So I'd like some elaboration on why the public isn't able to speak at a council meeting unless they apply for a deputation and do it that way. The reason this is so important to me, and I wanted to bypass all my other questions tonight, is because through the years where I've followed politics, there have been many issues where council came to the table planning to do something a certain way, and an individual, maybe that person, maybe the person sitting right beside me, maybe Joe would have
Mark, I'm going to ask you to get to the question, please.
Yeah. Well, my question is, why not let the public get back into making a comment or asking a question, because they've provided great input.
Okay, so
I'm sorry, is this?
I'll be happy to answer your question, Mark. And it's an answer that maybe perhaps you should know better than anybody. But at the end of the day, please, folks, we've got little time left. We've still got some people in line, so let's just hold our applauses. We want to get to the end here and answer as many questions. But let me make clear that the Municipal Act is clear that council meetings are meetings of council. They are not open public meetings. They are public meetings in the sense that you can come to the council chambers, you can watch, you can listen. If we put it on YouTube, you can watch it and listen to it that way. But it's a meeting of council. It is not a public meeting. Now, we do hold public meetings, such as tonight, when you can come and speak, public meetings on planning issues and other issues that are meetings for the public, and at that time, we allow the public to speak as long as they choose. I can tell you, Mark, that when I was the mayor from 2014, it was I who introduced, actually, an extra time frame, which was comment period. His Worship Mayor Cal Patterson, prior to that in his council, had a question period on anything on the agenda, which was 15 minutes long, and every speaker got 2 minutes. I put forth the motion and added to that we have also a comment period at the beginning of council. And council agreed, and we held that. Now, during my term of council, there were many times in meetings where our council meetings were hijacked, to the point where sometimes we couldn't finish the meeting. And I think you're well aware of that. So the last term of council now, then Mayor Byfolchi's council, they put in place that there was a period once per council meeting for 15 minutes where you could ask to be deputized or contact the clerk and let the clerk know that you wanted to come to council and ask a question or speak. And that council put that rule into place. So they took out the comment period and they had only a question period for which you had to, I believe, contact the clerk's office in order to come and speak. But if you contacted the clerk, told her what it is you wanted to speak to, she would give you a time as long as it's an agenda item, and you could come and speak. This council hasn't changed that. We simply have adopted and kept that same policy. So when that motion came forth on Monday to open so anyone could just come and speak, council felt, no, we've got a good policy in place. Anyone can come to a council meeting today if they contact in advance, say, hey, I'm coming, here's what I want to speak to about, here's the item on the agenda. So it's still an opportunity for people to come to speak. It's the same as it was in the last council. Now, the last council was slightly different because of COVID, so they didn't have any public meetings. As a matter of fact, I believe the last council didn't open a public meeting right to the end, even though COVID was long over. This council allows you to call in, come in and speak. That's the council decision. It is a council meeting. We do allow people to speak, but we now host these types of events where anyone can come up to the mic and ask any question about anything. Hope that answers your question. Thank you.
Oh, my mic? So anybody can apply to put forward a deputation, and that is the period that anybody can speak about any issue at a council meeting.
I'm going to ask the clerk to clarify
I'm just
what it
asking
is
the
you're
question.
asking. Absolutely, yeah, go ahead.
The town's procedural bylaw allows two things: delegations for items that are not on the agenda. For those type of requests, we ask that it is provided to the clerk's office the Wednesday prior to the council meeting, a week before. Any items that are on the agenda that somebody would like to speak to and address council have to 4 p.m. Wednesday, the day before the council meeting. And this council and administration has committed to providing the council agendas Monday night, typically, for the meeting on Thursday, to give everybody proper time to review those agendas and then make that delegation request. Thank you.
Thank you.
Evening, Kim.
Hello. I just wanted to make a comment. I attended the meeting back in June and I made a request about special needs swings. I want to thank town council and everybody that was involved. There are now 3 more of them in our neighborhood. One is right by our caregiver's house, which is wonderful, in Red Oak Park, and I'm going to be going there tomorrow to christen it with Shane. So thank you very much.
You're very welcome. And a great cause, and we are happy to do it. Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
Hello, my name is Victoria State. I've lived in Wasaga Beach for 4 years. One thing I've learned about the beach is I like it in the wintertime. time. There's less people. It's not as crowded. And I found that just even after Labor Day, I go down, take my car, and I go to the farthest point where the bandstand was, and I park there. There was a picnic table there, and it's no longer there. So I sit in my car. Now, going forward, the beach, let's go forward. The beach is now, all that's going to be taken down, and there's going to be a hotel up there. How many parking spots are going to be there for the guests of the hotel? And who's going to enforce it? That's going to be, is it the town that's going to enforce it? It's going to be police? Who's going to enforce it?
Yeah, so at every development that comes forward, the town has a bylaw that dictates how many parking spaces you must have. So every new building will conform to the town's zoning bylaw. So the hotel will be required to provide parking, etc. So again, that's not abnormal, happens in every municipality in the world. In terms of enforcement, depending if it's public or private parking, if it's public parking, it would be enforced by our bylaw department.
Yeah, but for a person like me that likes to park down there off-season, am I able to park down there?
Of course, in a public parking lot, of course.
Okay, just, you're talking about all these hotels and houses and, that's all private property.
No, so there will absolutely be public parking at the new beachfront, absolutely.
How many spaces, do you know?
I can't answer it until we have the actual detailed design, but there will be public parking.
Believe we understand yourself and many others love to sit on the beachfront in their car, have a coffee and ice cream and watch those sunsets. There's no better sunsets in the world. We're not aiming to take that away.
Okay.
We're going to take one more question, as it's after 9 o'clock now, from this lady, and then we'll be announcing very soon the next meetings. But if you have a question that didn't get answered, please reach out to our office. You can call my office and speak to Carla, and she'll ensure that we get an answer to your question. Ma'am, go ahead.
Hi. Can you hear me? Okay, hello. I'm Monica. I live on Norman Street. So I'm trying to do a two-part question then. So speaking of winter, and it gets dark very quickly. Last October, I submitted an application for a street light on Norman. We have a little free library there, and it's really, really dark because there's no lights there. And then the other part of this question still about parking at night. So kudos to you again for having all of those municipal parking lots. I think that's fantastic. Not sure if there's going to be a different strategy for the parking passes, but that's not my question. I'm curious if it's, and I'm just hoping that as part of the task force that you're thinking of, that the municipal parking lot at Beach 4, it's great, but the beach closes after Labor Day. So we have the municipal parking lot, but don't really have the beach. So just want to kind of flag that.
So with respect to Beach 4 and the municipal parking lot, I understand the provincial park closes, so you have the access and the snow is there. We don't have an answer for you there because it's the provincial park, we don't control it. With respect to the light on Norman, Kevin, I'm sure, has made a note, but he's got his hand up. He loves to answer questions. Kevin?
No, that's okay. I got great jokes too if anyone wants to stick around. So the street light request, just for residents, we do have a street light request policy, and there's a form online that residents can apply. And you did that, and you didn't get a response? Oh. Okay.
Replacing actually Wasaga Distribution is doing a fantastic job getting new hydro poles, really great communication and all of that fun stuff. But I was hoping that at the same time they can just, add another light. It doesn't work like that, I understand, but yeah, the application has been in for almost a year now.
It's not a very good turnaround, is it? I'll look into that, certainly, and we'll get a response to you in terms of timelines.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Monica, and thank you very much, everybody. Have a great evening.